I love them, man. They ain't got no shame.
During an event for the Democratic National Committee, President Joe Biden landed a joke. And I'm going to show it to you. And it's actually funny. But it speaks also to a larger debate that I find interesting. And I would like to get your thoughts on this as well. You'll see what I'm talking about. But first, let me show you this clip of this joke. Again, this is maybe the first time that I've laughed at Joe Biden when he meant to be laughed at, and not because of some gaffe or something else, but because he actually told a funny joke. So here it is.
We also passed once-in-a-generation investment in our nation's roads, highways, bridges, railroads, ports, airports, water system, high-speed internet. We got a little help from Republicans, but not a lot, but enough to get it passed. But the truth is, there are a lot more Republicans taking credit for that bill than we actually voted for it. I see them out there, and now we're going to build this new bridge here. We're all for it. And by the way, this new road, and we're going to have an internet that's going to be all the way. I love them, man. They ain't got no shame. They don't have any shame.
Joe Biden successfully clowning Republican politicians. Before I even get to the debate I want to discuss, and first I'll get to a little more on what he's talking about, this is the kind of Joe Biden that I think people want more of. Somebody who actually has some charisma, is able to attack the other side in a coherent and accurate way that is also, in this case, entertaining. This is what makes a good politician. So it's good to see that this version of Joe Biden is still in there, still exists, comes out occasionally, and has come out a lot more recently. So hopefully we see more of this. But on the issue of Republicans claiming credit for things they voted against, this, of course, is a major thing. I'm going to get to a breakdown from CNN that went over this briefly in a minute here. But, I mean, Rick Scott is a great example. Carrying on a tradition, takes credit for infrastructure funding he opposed. So he is one of many. Here is a bit of Jake Tapper's breakdown of the amount of Republicans that have done this.
This past weekend, Iowa Democrat Liz Mathis, who's trying to unseat Republican Congresswoman Ashley Hinson, called Hinson out for trying to take credit for the infrastructure bill, even though she voted no. At least 14 congressional Republicans tried to have their cake and vote against it too. Congressman Tony Gonzalez from Texas is on the list after voting against the infrastructure bill in November, calling it something that will only make matters worse and hold our country back. Months later, Gonzalez posted a big announcement on his website, touting that he secured $75 million for a creek restoration project in his congressional district. That money, of course, came from the infrastructure bill that he voted against. Florida Senator Rick Scott did the same thing. He voted against the infrastructure bill. Then he went to tour a new embankment in the Everglades, bragging about, quote, securing an unprecedented $1 billion for Everglades restoration, the largest single amount ever allocated by the federal government, unquote, the federal government that was given the money for the project from the infrastructure bill that Senator Rick Scott voted against.
These people are just absolutely shameless. It is so disgusting, and it is pure politics to do this. Now, this doesn't, I'll get to the debate aspect that I'm talking about in a second, but this doesn't, I can't imagine, really ever happen the other way around, because Republicans simply vote against things. The only things they vote for are tax cuts for the wealthy or something that will benefit, their base in terms of their disastrous positions on a variety of social issues, or when it comes to helping massive corporations. And I mean, largely that's what Congress does, is help large corporations and the wealthy. But you will almost never see an example where Republicans vote for actual spending to help people and then Democrats claim credit. That's not going to happen, because that's what Democrats do. They're the ones, the rare times they actually pass something that help people, they're the ones to do it. It's not the other side. But on the debate aspect of this, I find this kind of interesting. So Ayanna Pressley also voted against the infrastructure bill, but for a different reason. So I covered this when it happened. I believe 6 members of the so-called squad, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and a few others, they voted against the infrastructure bill because it was supposed to be tied to the Build Back Better bill. That was the initial plan until Joe Manchin, reneged on that. So a spokesperson said Presley had long supported infrastructure investments, but voted no because the infrastructure bill and Build Back Better Act were not moving forward together as had been originally planned. So if I showed you a longer bit of that CNN piece, Jake Tapper also brings this up as a way to, claim that both sides do this. But this is a very, very different scenario because Presley does actually support the spending, but it's a strategic vote against this because they understood that they were not going to get Manchin on board. At the time, there was the claim that, oh, don't worry, Manchin's going to come on board for the Build Back Better bill. But these 6 votes voted against it, saying that, hey, he's not going to come on board. And they were proven correct. So they should actually be getting credit for being on the right side here. Meanwhile, the entirety of the Democratic caucus, or the rest of them, voted for the infrastructure bill. Many of them with the assumption, just believing that Biden had got Manchin on board and never actually did. So the question, the debate here, I guess, is it okay for Presley to take credit, as she has, for the funding that's going to help, her district, even though she voted against the bill, with the understanding that she still supported it, but only voted against it strategically. So I think it's fine for her to do this. I don't see an issue. I think it's much different when you are somebody who doesn't support investments at all, when you're someone who is, like these Republicans, just they don't support any actual spending to help people. That is a very different thing than what the squad did here with their votes. But I would like your thoughts on that below the video because, I think there's a fair, I guess, debate on both sides of that. But I think it's fine. Last thing here, I just want to end on a clip from Chris Wallace, who's now on CNN, but for a long time was a Fox News anchor, and just his quick thoughts on this as well.
Do you think that's fair when maybe it's not fair, but part of the argument that some lawmakers will make is, I didn't support the entire bill. I can support some of what's in it, even if I didn't vote for it. Is that tying
Does it pass the smell test? Well, no,
so the
because what they're basically saying is, I don't support all of that federal spending. However, this project in my district is so great that I would have voted just for that. I mean, look, it's politics.
It sure is.
It is politics. And they're bringing that up because a lot of the defense from those that responded, from the Republicans that actually responded to the criticisms of them being in support or, taking credit for those various things, is that they said, oh, well, I was for the spending in my district, just not for the overall spending package. But of course, that's not how the federal government works that they are operating in. So they can't simply, try and claim that, oh, it's okay for me to do this because I would have passed a bill just for my individual district for this one bridge, which of course would never happen because, again, it's the federal government. So, yeah, I agree with Chris Wallace here. It does not pass the smell test. But, again, when we get to the Democratic Party or those 6 squad members, I think it's perfectly fine for them to talk about the infrastructure investments that are being made because they did actually support the infrastructure spending. They just voted strategically against it because of what they knew was coming, and that was Manchin being against Build Back Better. But anyways, I want to hear your thoughts below the video.